All right. Hey, welcome to Zulunet. Thank you for joining us. We've got a podcast tonight. We're just going to be talking about some new developments with Zulunet, and we're going to be talking about 9th edition. We haven't had...
Surprise.
Yeah. We haven't had too much content coming down lately. We've been pretty busy with some stuff, and, we've been wanting to sit back and just kind of see where things play out. We're not...
Right.
In on the deep dark secrets with GW and getting all the free extra, I don't know if it's free or not, but getting all the extra stuff early. So we're, just in this with you guys, learning as much as you guys, picking up the rule book when it's available for everyone else. That being said, what we have picked up is super interesting, and we're very excited to talk about it. I've got Kyle here with me.
Hello, I'm Kyle.
Yep, he is a patron, a patron's wrong word. He is a frequent flyer on the channel. Very much a part of the channel. Anyways, if you don't know him, go check out the battle reports. He's always whooping my butt in all the games.
Not always. Not always.
Most of the time, though. You've had a pretty good freaking run.
I think we had a tie once. I don't know.
We did. But either before that or after that was a game where I scored 1 victory point. And you scored like freaking 14. So,
yeah,
But on other news of Zulunet, and another reason why we've kind of slacked a little bit on the YouTube because I've been super busy getting this whole thing up. It is, boom! It is the website with our web store. If you're plugged in on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with us, you'd have seen this stuff coming down. If not, hey, welcome to the new thing. So we've got shirts, we've got phone cases, mugs, stickers. Been working a lot on the shirts lately. Anyways, this is our website. It is at zulu-net.com/connect/the shopping place. You'll see the link below, but just want to see some of this stuff. Check this shirt out. It looks really freaking cool. Anyways, check out all the different colors we've got. There's plenty of colors to choose from. I prefer the dark ones because my heart is dark and cold. No Step on Squig. Classic. What was that, Kyle?
Like a goth kid.
Yes. And then if you are perusing our great website here and you see like, oh man, that looks so me, and you just go right here and it says click here. Guess what? You click there and you go through and then go do the normal web store stuff and buy the shirt. Super easy. Like I said, we've got mugs, we've got shirts, all the things I've mentioned. Stuff looks freaking awesome. Super excited about it. But yeah, if you wanna game in style, this is how you do it. All right, enough of that, Kyle.
Yeah.
On to
I'm so tired of it.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about 9th edition. So we've got obviously, the codex and chapter approve have dropped this weekend, right? For all the normal people. There is the whole bugaloo about the Indominus box and that whole thing. And then what else? The app. There's a lot of things to talk about. There's a ton of things to talk about. So let's go through the rules first, and then we can talk about the other stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So what's your takeaway as far as like the general how it's going to change, from 8th edition to 9th edition?
So I feel like the core rules haven't really changed that much. There's certainly some defining things that are changing, but it's not really that much.
Right.
It seems like the main things that are changing are like keywords and terrain, and then so the first thing you've got there is unit coherency.
Right.
That's definitely a big deal. Changing how your little mobs work. So that's not a huge deal for me. I play orcs, I don't normally play large groups of boys, but that definitely does. It does kind of put a damp rag on the idea of running bigger squads, because it's like, well, they're less functional now.
Yeah.
I think this is reasonable, though. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a bit silly seeing one unit hold all the objectives on the table.
Right. Yeah. I think overall, really it just kind of seems like a really big FAQ for 8th edition, in the sense that like a lot of the confusion points and whatnot, a lot of the things that were just kind of silly, they've cut out or they've clarified or whatnot. And so I'm really excited about that. I do feel, though, that the changes that were made you're just going to end up with a completely different experience because of things like you mentioned, like with like the big orc boy squads and whatnot. You're not going to see them stream across the table and control, five or six objectives. However, it's going to be hard to bring them on the table at all with certain changes. Like there's going to be certain things that, like specifically with the whole MSU, mini small unit build, how many advantages I feel like that's going to inherently have over a lot of the big hordy. We talked about with our Death Guard, how we would love to see it. We'd love to see it make sense to take like the max, I think is 20 Plague Marine squad. That would be so cool.
I think it's all Chaos Space Marines, just they can get to 20 in a squad.
Yeah,
which I've always thought would be really cool.
Yeah,
just like maybe not the best idea, but I'd want to try it out and play around with it.
Right. Well, and I don't thematically it would look super cool, and I don't know if there's really a strong argument as to why it wouldn't be the best idea in real time. I mean, there certainly would be pros and cons in real life, to having such a big unit and all that sort of thing. But not to the effect of, I feel like if I showed up with max level Plague Marine squads or anything level squads currently, like you just get laughed off the table basically with all the different stuff going on. But I think you're just going to see a lot of different tactics, really, because there's going to be a lot of different ways to be successful and a lot of ways that were successful that are not going to be successful anymore,
Right. But at the same time, you are, due to how detachments are changing with command points, you are going to be, there's going to be like this seesaw between like, well, I can't Congo line and blast weapons. But I'm also restricted on how many units I can take before I start hemorrhaging CPs.
That's a very good point, and that might, I wonder just how much that would balance the, what seems to me at least, the inherent advantage to taking a lot of small units. Yeah. But so, all right, so let's get into this a little bit. We're straight up taking this from spruesandbrews.com, and they're going through the review. It's quite handy, quite nice, so we're just going to use it as a little template. Unit coherency. All right, so big changes. I think that they're honestly great changes, and I think this is one of those things. This tied into some other rules, kind of like with the Lookout Sir, how that's changed and whatnot, is going to completely change a lot of things that you're used to seeing, not necessarily on the tabletop, but how they're played on the tabletop. So Kyle, you're better with rules. You want to walk us through the changes?
So this is saying you guys have to be closer together. Like if you're, as I mentioned before, if you've got a big squad of boys, right? The example I was given, you can't just have them in a nice strung out line holding all 6 objectives on the table.
Right.
They have to be, like, depending on how many's in the squad, you have to have X amount of models that are within 2 inches of X amount of models, or I guess Y amount of models.
Right.
So if you've got a 5-man squad, then they're good, just one model to one model.
Right.
Once you get, what is it? Is it 6 models now?
Six or more.
6 to 10? Or is it six more?
I think it's 6 or more, period.
Because this isn't going to affect me a lot, so that's why I don't remember the detail quite as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to be, each model will have to have 2 models or more within the 2 inches.
Yeah, that one's it's 6 or more. There's some other rules where it kind of changes from like 11 or more, I think with blast and whatnot. But
right.
Yeah, I think it's 1 to 5. You're good as long as you just, the 2. It's 2 inches and the 5 inches vertically, and then and then you get 6 and more. You have to have 2 models within 2 inches. So yeah, you end up with this down here.
And then if you fail to do that, once you get to the morale phase, then you just start removing models until you are in coherency. And there's no way to bring them back. They're just removed from play.
Right. So in this situation here, in the middle of the screen, you got the bone shape. I was thinking about this whenever I first heard the rule. I was like, okay, so I think this is a really good instance. This is really good proof that some solid play testing happened with this, because like I said, this is my first, like, okay, well, you could still get around that. You could still Congo line your guys out and just have these little clusters. But I wonder if the caveat of then you have to remove until you're within was a catch to that. Like, it was realized, like, okay, well, we made this rule to keep stupid things from happening on the tabletop, and then now we're going to get even more stupid things. All right, so let's also add in. So I think that's a really good add on that you lose guys, because here you lose any one of these dudes. You lose a model from this unit here, and you're losing all the way down to, well, I guess you would lose down to 5, right? Because would you?
Yeah, you would lose down to 5.
Because then that would be the cutoff, and then you'd be good, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming that would count towards your morale, right?
No, I believe they've said that doesn't count towards.
Okay, so
it's lost. Huh. I think they're just removed from play. There's no saves, but there's also no further penalty.
Okay, that would be freaking scary. Because you could easily, well, not easily, but you could lose the whole squad.
yeah, for sure.
One really bad roll.
I mean, obviously, the Congo line removal is a big part of this, but I think a less noticeable side effect of this is you're going to have to be much more careful of special models in your squad. I know I like to just throw my guys around however they land, basically, right. But I don't want to lose the heavy weapon in the team first, so you're going to have to be more thoughtful on your model placement, right, as you're moving your unit around.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that, you're like turn 3 or 4 into a solid brutal game. It's really easy to just get ahead of yourself and just start placing stuff wherever. I mean, there's countless times where, even with the forgiving 8th edition unit coherency or previous edition unit coherency rules, it was always like, oh man, they're not even in coherency. Oh, what do I do now?
Right.
Because you just start taking things off. I do really like the separation from 1 to 5 and then 6 or more, and then in other instances where you have a further separation of 11 or more. I really like that, because you just get these really awkward interactions between armies like Custodes or whatnot that have elite small numbers of models in any one unit. You're not going to see a massive, even 10 unit squad. You're probably not going to see that with Custodes or some other armies out there, but they have to conform to these rules that were built with large orc boy squads in mind, and there's not interdifferentiation. So I do really like that, because it does not make sense to have your little 5-man Space Marine unit clumped together in a little cloverleaf everywhere they go. Like, it makes sense that they could spread out, because you have a smaller unit, you have a greater sense of command and control over your element as your you're the squad leader or whatever. So yeah, you can have them spread out a little bit better. But if you got a big, massive, 10-man squad, you're going to want them closer together so that you can have that command and control. So I like that. I like that it separates that out so you can get a better feel for the style that you want to play. I think that'll.
So I just checked the rule book.
Yeah.
On the potential conflict between morale and the coherency. Mm-hmm. Morale takes place before coherency check, so that it does not affect it in any way.
So you go through. So you don't. Like, let's say you're going through the shooting phase and then you remove models and all of a sudden you're out of unit coherence. So they stay the same until the end of essentially the turn, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you could use, you don't just have to think about one phase. You have to think about multiple phases, losing models. Yeah, so you definitely got to make sure you got this little gridlock going on.
Yeah. Yeah, coherency is literally the last thing in a turn.
Okay. All right, cool. That'll be something that you'll have to keep track of. Well, I guess you won't have to keep track of it if all your stuff is in coherency. So don't screw up, right?
Yeah.
All right. On the next thing, modifiers. I like this. I like this a lot.
I think I do too. So yeah, I think it's pretty bonkers when a unit gets down to like -4 to be hit. Mm-hmm. That's a little broken. Mm-hmm. But I haven't fully fleshed out my thought on this. If I like losing the ability to be like, -2 to hit, because I think that's not totally unreasonable.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's the more you bring this like in line towards like maximum of 1, minimum of 1 sort of thing. You start to lose asymmetry.
Right.
So you're gonna have less specialization. Overall, I think I like this.
Right.
I just haven't fully fleshed out my thoughts on it. But yeah, I think there was definitely abuses of this where you just stack and stack and stack, and then unless you're playing a unit that's like always hits on 6s, you run into situations where it's like, well, I can't even attack because I won't hit.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's the flip side to what I'm about to say, which is I like. That's great. Because I was thinking about that, like that. So what your argument is essentially is, and I think is one of the strong suits of 40K and why a lot of people enjoy 40K, is that there's such variation within all the different, you choose your army because you like them and they have these rules that sort of fit into their theme, right? And you're not just playing the game. You're not just a 40K player. You are a Necron player. You are a Death Guard player, or whatever. That being said, I like it because it does cut down. So I think I mentioned this last time that we had a tactical overview, but I enjoy more simplicity on a lot of the interactions or something, whatever the right word is there, just because I think it allows for more, it allows for better decisions to be made because you're spending less time. Okay, here's an instance, right? When I've never played Magic the Gathering, but one of the complaints that I had heard, and one of the reasons why I've never played Magic the Gathering, because I heard this from several different people, was that it was kind of one of those games where if you just bought the right things, you just show up with the right deck and you would just win, Unverified, because like I said, I haven't played it, so sorry if you're a huge Magic the Gathering, I don't mean to offend you, but any instance where that becomes a thing where, sort of buy hammer happens, where you just get the right things and that unlocks these unbeatable bonuses. I don't like that. I also love balance, right? I love there being a balance to where whatever happens, I could reach into my closet of 40k miniatures and pull something out that would at least stand a chance on the tabletop. I don't like it whenever I show up with things that may be outdated, but because they're outdated, I just get I have no chance, right? I don't like that at all, right? And I feel like this is one of the moves into a better direction for that. And I don't know if that's, I highly doubt that 40k will ever be truly like that or like that a lot. But this is one of those things where it could cut down a lot of stuff, cut down a lot of the, like I said, kind of silly combos. But I think that capping it at -1 or +1, I don't think that that'll be, I don't think that that'll be bad. I think that a lot of, especially newer players that aren't aware of these weird combos out there,
right?
It won't be so discouraging when they finally come up against the first time they play Eldar, and then someone's got Crimson Hunters with all the stuff, and you can't shoot them, and you're like, well, this is great. You know, I love 40k so much. You know, So I think that it definitely makes the game more inviting in that sense. It cuts down on what you have to keep track of because there's that solid cap. But then also I think that it'll make what you have on the table, no matter what it is, a little more viable and less what you actually bring to the table. Not so much, not to that level, but I think it helps. Anyways.
Right. No, there's another side to this that seemed very subtle, but in the rulebook, when it's talking about hitting and wounding, it says an unmodified roll of 1s always fails, and an unmodified 6 always succeeds, regardless of modifiers.
Okay.
I love that. I think that is great. Before, I know there's a couple other armies that had some access to this, but orcs had that with Daka, an unmodified 6. Not only do you generate additional chances to hit, but that is an automatic success regardless of modifiers.
Right.
Which was a pretty big deal when you'd fight, like you said, things like Eldar or Harlequins or whoever else has the stacks of negative modifiers.
Right.
So I like that's now just a basic rule. If you got a 6, it succeeded no matter what.
Yeah.
If you got a 1, sorry, it failed.
Yeah. Well, and that's something where I love the changes to, or the addition, I guess, of bolter discipline in 8th edition, where if you just stood still with all your dudes and they get to fire rapid fire, even if they're outside of half range, because it gave you that volume if that was what you're looking for, and then in that case where, hey, now this applies to you, where you, even if I get 6, well, if I'm standing there, and again, that kind of balances out maybe a little bit of the inherent advantage of multiple small units, because if you got your 10 Plague Marines or even your 20 Plague Marines or whatever, and they're all firing rapid fire, well, that's a lot of dice, right? And you could definitely do some damage with just that much volume. So yeah, that is, yeah. I wonder. So you look at this and you just see like an inherent advantage, like I said, to MSU, but I just wonder how many of these subtle sort of things are actually in there that are that people can find and exploit, and then kind of just surprise the meta and be like, oh, we didn't think about this. I feel like that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
Command phase.
So this, I don't think is that big a deal.
Yeah,
like the phase itself.
Yeah.
It's just a new timing sequence. That's all.
Yeah.
What's a big deal is that you get a command point with sort of a return.
Yes. And you know there's going to be codexes that come out that give abilities to get more or something. You know, there's going to be some play in that. But yeah, it's that being able to regen, and then that combined with like just how many command points you're getting potentially with your detachments and all that sort of thing. It definitely, which I think is cool. I think I really, really did enjoy the intro. I was really not sure about stratagems at first until I got to play with them. I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. So I did really come to enjoy the use of stratagems and all that. But yeah, the fact that it wasn't, how it was set up wasn't evened out for all the armies out there. Yeah, I really hope that this new command phase and the command point detachment system altogether will really balance those things out, because I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of that combination of what cards you have to play combined with the tactics you're actually and how the dice are rolling and all that. It's a way to help push things in your favor if you know how to use them correctly.
Right.
All right. Moving phase. Fly, can't fall back and shoot anymore.
Right. That mostly affects Tau, I believe.
Yeah.
As far as whole armies.
Yeah.
It affects a bunch of stuff, but mostly Tau.
I don't know if I've ever, besides my Stormfang, I don't know if I've ever played with anything that flew and also shot. It's just not my style. I just always bring in like the jumpy boys with Thunderhammer and Storm Shields,
right?
Or like Demon Princes. I've never been able to fit like the 15-point Plague Spewer on the Demon Prince of Nurgle, so I just, this one kind of flies over me, but I'm sure, like for Tau, this is a pretty big deal.
Flies over you. Nice.
Transports, this here just says that it clears things up. Do you have anything to add on that?
No, I don't.
Cool. Aircraft. Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit before. I do again, there's certain clarifications being made, as we mentioned before, and this is one of them. The difference between an aircraft now and the fly. You kind of have like the airborne keyword in there, right?
Right.
And when the turbo, supersonic.
Right.
Like those kind of combo words that ended up here, I guess, being aircraft. But yeah. I think they definitely need to be made, because a Space Marine on a jump pack is not the same thing as a supersonic, jet flying around with millions of cannons and assault Gatling cannon stuff and all that stuff,
Right.
And so, yeah, and two, that they can fly off. I really like that. I think it would be really, really cool to have it be where if they certain aircraft could be allowed to not do this, right? More hovery type aircraft, but other aircraft like the Stormfang, for instance. Well, maybe not because it's transport, but maybe the Interceptor or whatnot. That variant. But where they flew on for like a turn, did all their shooting, and then they flew off, and then they weren't allowed to come back until like the next turn or like the following turn or something like that.
Right.
I think that something like that would be really cool, very interesting, because then you could differentiate between, you could have like striker and like bomber aircraft, and they have a completely different role than your transport kind of close combat support. You could really differentiate some units in there and have completely different styles of play coming in. Right. And there would be a cool sort of, I'm kind of imagining it from like a gamecaster standpoint of like, oh, well, he's got his aircraft coming in the next turn. This could be big, could add some sort of tension or like strategery to when you choose to bring in your aircraft sort of thing. But anyways, pipe dreams over here.
Yeah.
Anything big that stands out to you as far as, there's a bit on, it's talking about here how like they kind of go in a little bit deeper on engagement zones, right? And
right.
Like engagement zones with aircraft.
So you just can't, basically it's just a simplification of, you can't really block as effectively with aircraft anymore. You can still block with them because you still can't end on their base.
Right. Or engagement. What exactly is engagement zone, for those that don't know?
within 1 inch.
1 inch. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can move through them without penalty, but you can't end with engagement. So that's still, especially on some aircraft with a bigger. Well, do they have pretty much the same base? Yes.
Yeah, pretty much all aircraft have the same base.
Yeah, it's a pretty big base, and add an inch bubble around that becomes pretty big. So you can still block if you place them correctly. So if you're trying to block and you're talking about a unit that if you place it kind of like, if you place it further, like at the nether regions of their movement range, right, then you're gonna take a sizable chunk of where they can move. You're really negate. So if you did that with jump pack people, right, where they get their 12-inch range or whatnot, then yeah, you could easily cut their movement down 5 or 6 inches or something like that if you place it right at the 12 inches from them in the direction that they're probably going to be moving.
Right.
But if you place it right up next to them, then they'll just fly right over, or walk right over if they've got the movement. So, yeah, interesting. I think it's really good though. That, again, just clarifying. That's something that always needs to be done, no matter what is going on in 40K. Clarification always needs to happen. All right, nothing changing the psychic phase except for you can't jump between psychers anymore.
Right.
You activate one, do them all, and then which I guess it's not really going to matter that much except for like super psychic-y. I can imagine, I haven't played them, but Thousand Suns, I'm sure that they probably had some play in like what buffs what and timing and all that.
People.
What was that? What was that?
Just siege people.
Yes. All right, shooting phase.
Oh, this is a good change.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about it. Talk about it, please.
Vehicles no longer suffer the -1 to hit penalty when firing heavy weapons if they move.
That's huge.
My goodness.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that we probably mention every single game that we play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because every time it happens, you're just like, this doesn't make sense. Like,
it's a vehicle designed to carry this weapon.
Yeah, you're talking about freaking dreadnought. Like, it has a chassis dedicated to one purpose and one purpose only: carrying giant weapons into battle. That's all it is made for, and it suffers a freaking penalty from moving. Are you kidding me? It's a walker. It
Not
walks. Yeah, so definitely super excited about that. Super excited about that because my my dreadnought, my super Space Wolfsy armored Wolves of Space dreadnought list. I might see some.
Dude, all vehicles are coming back now.
Yeah.
Because also this rule, you can shoot in engagement range at a -1 if you're a vehicle or a monster.
Well, in this article it says with the big guns never tire rule. So.
Right.
And then the non-blast weapons. I wonder how restrictive that big guns never tire is going to be.
Well, I guarantee you Lehman Russes have it. Right.
I know that's all you care about, Kyle, but let's get out of your head a little bit. Yeah. Well, I say that just because I could see that being something where, again, like a dreadnought doesn't get it. Which
I don't think a dreadnought would care because they have a dreadnought power fist or it's better. Right.
But there are certain instances where like you get the Daredeo, dual butcher cannon dreadnoughts.
Then you're just asking for it, so shame on you.
Well, yeah, but that is a build out there, and it's something to think about, especially with like the new stratagems with like outflank, where you just outflank stuff, just anything. You got your three. Your trip Daredeo dreadnoughts in the back, just chilling, smoking things. Enemies with their weapons, Kyle. But yeah, and something just pops up right next to them. Something to think about.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I wonder. I could see that being. I could see a few things coming up where it wouldn't have that rule, and it would be like we'd be back in the same situation. Like why? But overall, I think it'll be really interesting to see how this exactly plays out. I'm not 100% sure exactly if, because 8th edition was hardcore going the way of the shooting, right? And going, like, there was some excellent ballet craft to be had in the assault phase. And some of that's gone away, so I don't know if this is going to be better. 9th edition, if it's going to continue to go that way, or if it's going to be more balanced.
But we'll get more into that later, because that's going to come up more with less the rules and more the setup and the game itself.
Yeah.
So the next point in shooting is changes to Lookout, Sir.
Yes, this is huge.
I like this a lot. I think
I do
it
too.
adds more depth to the game and makes it less silly. Because I mean, you could have just a guy in your backfield, or you could have a character just almost anywhere on the table, so long as he wasn't the closest to enemy models. Get shot.
Yep.
Be way out there in the open. It's like, why can't I shoot him? And now
Because you got this one dude hiding behind a freaking wall somewhere. Stupid scouts.
Yeah. So I really, really like this change.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting little add-on. So vehicle, monster, or a unit of 3 or more models, because this is going to play directly, kind of risk reward one hand to the other hand with those advantages to having many small units. Because depending on how valuable or how much you want to keep your dude alive, then how much are you going to dedicate to his bodyguard? Because if you have, let's say you have a Ragnar Blackmane, and you just have like 5 Blood Claws, and that's it, then you just send something that's going to either kill the Blood Claws outright, or all you have to do is kill 3 of them. It's not freaking hard. And then you can smoke Ragnar, you can burn him down, you know? I gotta stop saying that smoke thing, because people are gonna start, having questions. But anyways, so yeah, but then it's like, okay, so you have 2? All right, well then you're talking about you kill 3 here, kill 3 here, then you can still do it. A shooting army can easily manage that. Okay, well now 3 units of 5? Well, now you're talking about an entire battalion's worth of troops dedicated to the bodyguard of 1. All right, well, so then maybe you would take bigger units for your bodyguards. Well, but now then you're getting into that, only then blast weapons are just going to be able to start, really hurting you there. So I think it'll be a very interesting play there. But yeah, I do really like this, because this is one of those just really silly things that would just happen, and whenever it would happen, it would just be really dumb and frustrating, because I think inherently, deep down, we all want the game to look like it should, Definitely don't want stupid, dumb things to be the reason why we lose, right? And I think this will not only keep that from happening, but I think it will just look way cooler as the game is being played out. It'll just make a lot more sense in your brain as you're looking at it. You're like, okay, yes, I could see this battle formation, and this makes sense to me. This doesn't. I don't have guys hiding behind walls making you not shoot the guy that's right in your face, clear as day. You have clear line of sight,
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, another thing. I was watching some video. Another interesting play here is transports, and kind of thinking like the Rhino, for instance, or Razorback even. Maybe even Razorback even more, because you might not want to be taking 5 or more or 6 or more models in your units, but have your vehicle next to the dude, and then you can't shoot him because he's a vehicle. Then you kill the vehicle, well then the dudes get out, and now you have another thing to shoot there. So have like little bubble wrap still going on there, just in a different way. which I think is cool. All right, Blast. This is pretty big.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, and it's going to be pretty much like the blast weapons are the ones that would have variable attack values, or that did have variable attack values, or do, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yep. So it's not going to be so restrictive that it's going to be really, you're going to be, let me say this. Certain armies are not going to be affected by this because there's going to be things that they were already taking, probably, right?
Yeah.
So, but, you'd have a reason to take them. But, yeah, it's pretty big boon if you have a blast weapon and then you happen to play against a horde army, because especially 11 or more models, your Orc Boy squad or the vaunted 20 model Death Guard squad, Plague Marine squad. Yeah, if something is shooting at you with guaranteed 6 shots, that you're used to having it being variable, which means probably not shooting 6, shooting somewhere around 3.
Yeah,
it's pretty big, and especially if you have multiples of those,
Right.
Any key insights?
No, I think this has been a pretty big talking point of this edition.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to add to it.
Yeah. Well, you're just figuring it out. Here it is. If not, you probably know exactly what we're talking about. So,
yeah.
Hit wound modifiers. You talked about this before.
Yep, we did.
All right. Anything else? Ignoring wounds. Again, going back to what I was saying about the to hit modifiers having that cap. This, where you only can benefit from ignoring wounds from one rule, I think is good too, because of just the making it more approachable to newer players, in the sense that you have that guy that has all the stuff, and then he has some super secret combo because he's either been playing forever or he Googled the meta or something and had the models to make it happen, and can't just like all of a sudden you're losing because of all these rules that you've never heard of, and you can't just kill the dude or something, like I think this will be good. I like this direction. I like the caps. I like all that. I think that you can still satisfy having the variability within all the armies and having the flavor of the different armies. I think you could still happily satisfy that.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that things should just stack all the time. I don't like that.
Right.
I don't like the chains of. I think like if there's ways for things to stack, it should be through stratagems. I think that's what stratagems should be for, right? Like one-time use sort of things, or like it's not just a built-in ability for what you have. Is you're just gonna keep on getting it,
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then you just don't have these weird combos where you just can't do anything to your opponent because of charges. Yes, there's a lot to talk about here. We're talking about some of the pretty ballet work that could be done in the assault phase. Yeah, so the biggest thing to me, well, two of the biggest things, but the biggest thing is that, you have to make it into, you have to roll the distance of everything you declare to charge against. So no more slingshotting around using your pile-in and consolidation. That being said, the charge phraseology changed just a little bit to where you don't have to move the first model within engagement range, but as long as they end up or something, right? So you have a little more freedom as to what models or orders that you choose to get your guys in, right?
Right.
But that being said, that you got to make it into whatever you charge. So you're not going to be very hesitant to declare that dude that is 9 inches away.
Yeah,
in addition to the 3-inch away unit,
I definitely favor playing shooting armies and I've definitely been on the receiving end of suffering from that multi-charge rule before, where you could. It's like, well, I definitely can make it to this model, so I'll declare charge against him.
So here's your whole army. Yeah.
As well. That being said, I don't particularly like this change.
Mm-hmm.
I was fine with multi-charges how they were.
Yeah.
I'm not like strongly against this. I just think it wasn't necessary.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I really enjoyed I think it added a whole lot of how you place your units and stuff. A whole lot of those like small little unit tactics while you're playing. And whereas this, I think it does, it simplifies it. But yeah, I don't think that it was with how many things, with how much meta out there that is good because they shoot well. I don't like it. I love the assault phase. I love fighty armies, so you probably can't get me to like it. But right. Yeah, like you said, I don't think it was needed. I don't think that there was anything that was just inherently broken about anything in the assault phase, because you had to just be really skilled to get it off. You had to play all those distances correctly and whatnot. And I feel like maybe it was a loophole to begin with, and they didn't intend for it to be like that, and this is them fixing it. But I feel like it was just like it was a bone to the assault armies. Like, all right, here you go. You can also slingshot around. Cool.
Yeah. You just have to risk the Overwatch.
Yeah. But like to get in there, to get to those HQs, or to tie up the gun line, which is changing too. So again, like if you're worried about tying up a gun line, which was a big thing that was happening in 8th, well, now you don't have to worry about that much, because those things can shoot now in assault phase, right? So like, or shoot in combat.
Engagement range.
Yeah. And yes, so we'll have to see heroic interventions.
So I think this makes sense. It kind of hurts because so I've only used this once, and actually comically recently, and definitely abused that, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna make a heroic intervention and you can't fight me.
Yeah.
And I've slain your charging unit before it got to attack.
Which sucked.
Yeah. So I have mixed feelings about this. I think it makes sense that you should be able to attack some dude that walks up and is like, hey, I'm gonna fight too.
Yeah. But
also it kind of sucks because you don't really want your character to get targeted.
Right.
And so I feel like this is going to reduce the amount of times you would perform a heroic intervention.
Yeah. It reduces it, and it's definitely going to make you way more hesitant. I think an overall theme here is like, you're just going to have to be more careful with your characters in 9th edition. Like the world is getting more dangerous for your HQs. Like, which
tanks, it's fine.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not opposed to this. I think I honestly like it. Just because I don't like those instances. I don't like I gotcha sort of things, right?
I do.
And yeah, so you mentioned your little demon prince taking out my dreadnought. Like, it was unpleasant for me, sure, but it was a beautiful play. Like, it was perfectly done. Like, oh yeah, well, now I can't do anything, and you're just gonna kill my dreadnought. It hasn't done anything. Like, it worked out really great for you, and you did that exactly how you should have. But I don't know if there's ever, like, thematically or realistically, if there's ever an instance where, like, you would be charging into melee with no worries about you also getting hurt, Yeah. So I'm not opposed to it, just because it's one of those things where I think it makes sense. I think that from a new player's perspective, that's another thing where you're already keeping track of a lot of these different rules. You're not sure how these things play out, and then a heroic intervention happens, and you're like, you can't do anything to my guy, and he's just gonna do something really bad to your guy. It makes it more approachable, because you inherently you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna attack this guy because you attacked me, and you're like, oh, you can't do that. I'm sorry, what? Like, why can't I do that? The dude is right next to him.
It makes sense, but I think I'm part of me that's against it kind of misses that little finesse, because I felt like it's really hard to pull off a rogue intervention in the first place.
Right. Well, yeah.
It should be pretty rewarding if you can do it.
3 inches is not a freaking long way, No. You got Space Wolves and some other armies out there that get the 6 inches, which
World trades and stuff.
Yeah, something I need to invest a lot more time in thinking about using that correctly with Space Wolves, just because how character heavy they are. I gotta get into the mind frame of Space Wolves, man. Like, with Finn in X-Wing, like, you can't play Finn well unless you're thinking like Finn. Same way with Space Wolves, I think,
Just get a wolf suit.
Do what?
Just get a wolf suit. It'll take care of it.
Yes. I've got a drinking horn, so that'll be a good start. Yes. Yeah. Overwatch. Yes. One thing I think that no, we'll get into it. Never mind. Overwatch. Huge change. I love it. I'm sure that you are hesitant about it, maybe.
No, I think overall I'm happy with this change. I mean, as much as I appreciate being able to perform Overwatch, I also think it's a big waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the armies that are good at Overwatch will still be able to Overwatch better than other armies.
Right.
Like, they've basically said Tau don't lose their Overwatch, which is like, no, that's kind of dumb.
What did they say that they don't lose it, or is it still the?
They have some special rule that I haven't looked into it because I don't play Tau. I don't play against Tau, at least not in a very long time.
Well, I guess the way I understood it, it
even says in this article, some armies make this an ability on their data sheet, or perhaps as an entire army-wide rule, as in the case of Tau.
Okay, but my question is can they still only do Overwatch once, but they can do it with multiple units in that instance? Or do they just get free Overwatch? That's what I'm... You know what I'm saying? Or is it still like... It's going to be a stratagem, so they still have to spend it, but they can do it multiple times, or something like that.
It's not a stratagem, it's an ability.
I thought it was a... Are you saying it's an ability for, like, Tau, but for everyone else, you have to spend the CP? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I wonder, but... Yeah, we'll just have to see how this plays out. If you know, please let us know in the comments, because I'm dumb.
No, I don't play Tau.
Yeah, I don't play Tau either. Freaking commies. Yeah, so... But, okay, so Overwatch... Like you said, it took up a lot of time, and yes, the things that are still good at it, which I think is good. It's one of those things where that's one of those instances where you could still preserve the flavor of those armies without screwing everything else up by having those modifier caps. Because something just like this, where you get Tau, that's their thing. Everyone knows that's their thing, and they're not going to lose their thing. It's their mojo. They're going to keep it. But for everyone else... Yeah, I like it a lot better, because it's not like in the cacophony of a battle, the fog of war.
Cacophony?
Huh?
You mean cacophony?
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Tomato, all right? It's freaking tomato, potato, okay? But
something like that.
You're not going to have, like, that big unit that we've all been talking about just be, like, on point, ready to go, and then, oh, look, they're all charging, we're all going to shoot at once,
Yeah.
Like, I could see it being something in it, like how it is, a one-time thing in the turn, because that's sort of, there's planning going on there, or there, but it just added a whole lot of danger for those assault heavy armies. And it was one of those things where it wasn't guaranteed, but it was just enough there where it would happen, and it would probably be something very disappointing to your game, if it was happening to you. Do what?
You're so salty.
It happens all the time, man. Yes, I'm glad. Rest in peace.
No, I like it too.
Yeah. The assault, the engagement range, or no, not engagement range, the units that can fight, 1/2 inch instead of the 1 inch, which I think it makes sense. Because now you can only get those 2 ranks. And
whoa, skipped a paragraph. That's pretty important.
What is it?
After all the chargers fight, the player whose turn it is not gets to choose a unit first.
Oh, instead of, yeah.
I think I like that because it sucks when you get charged. It's like, all right, they attack, and they attack, and they attack. No, I don't get attacked because my guys are dead now. Mm-hmm. So cool, fun phase. So I think this helps break that up. Is like,
yeah. I agree. Did you have something else to say?
No, that's basically it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely something that it can be. There's a lot of things in 8th edition and then now 9th edition. The difference between 7th and previous editions to 8th, in this sense, where they got away with the initiative, that just makes 40k now just so brutal, because of that, where you could just get charged and then everyone fights before you do, and you just have your entire unit wiped out before they get a chance to do that. Then having that where you have all the chargers and then the attacker gets to choose a unit, that could easily be the one that could really, really matter, and I really, I know that the whole initiative thing, doing it this way, shaves a lot of time, a lot of checking the rules, a lot of going back and figuring out, a lot of interaction, weird sort of synchronicities going on. But I don't know, I feel like I like the feel of the initiative system.
Yeah, same.
Even though it take longer, I feel like that would be worth it, because to me it just feels better,
I agree.
But yes, this definitely a balance back, bringing that needle a little bit closer to center. Yes. All right. Any other paragraphs you want to talk about before we move on?
No.
All right. Morale. This dude, this is one of those where I look at it and I see it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it like strikes fear into me. But then you think about it and you're like, it could not be so bad. But the reason it strikes fear to me, because there's so many times where I'm like, I just don't roll any ones. It's no problem. And I roll like more than half of the dice are ones, and it just happens all the time. And I know it's going to happen with this. But yeah, talk about it a little, Kyle.
So I like this. Wait, I don't remember. Did it take away the leadership check first? If you beat the leadership unit, you simply...
Yeah, so you still do the leadership, and then if you lose the one model, and then you do the combat attrition test.
Okay, so this is added on to it.
Right. Yeah, so if you fail the test, you're losing a model, and then you roll a dice for each of the models in that, and then if it's below half strength on a 1 or a 2, if not, then a 1, then all the ones are done.
This is something that, again, is a buff to the larger units, because they generally had lower leadership.
Right.
And if you killed enough of them, and they got a bad leadership role, they could just be pulled off the table completely.
Right.
This has given them some breathing room, and is also harder on high leadership units like Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
They fail that test. Yeah, they were probably only losing one dude in the first place, but now they could lose even more than that.
Right, but at the same time, you're going to see a lot of Space Marines that only have the 5 models, and they're probably not going to
It's still not
trigger
gonna be that deal.
Right.
But it is a deal. It's going to be much scarier.
Yeah. It's good or bad luck. It's over the course of a game. I'm sure that the dice are come pretty dang close to perfectly statistical. It's when those fall that decide if you have good or bad luck in that game, and
just don't play dice or card games then.
Yes, and that's something I need to do, because this happens all the time where I'm like, all right, it's okay, calm down, Patrick, it's fine, just don't. They're all ones, like.
Yeah, but you do have nice smite rolls,
huh?
so that makes up for it. You do have nice smite rolls, so I think that makes up for it.
Yeah, but when I'm playing Space Wolves, I'm missing that smite, man.
So it's really the one psyker doesn't count.
Yeah. Those the Trip Demon Prince is probably not going to go anywhere. Those guys are a good team. So potentially scary. It's really scary for me. It's just because I have like PTSD when it comes to rolling dice and bad things happening on ones. I'm sure we can all relate. All right.
Objective markers. I like this. This is small but very, very convenient. So you're not trying to figure out where the middle of the objective is anymore. Not just like, oh, do I get 3 inches to any part of that objective? Cool.
Right.
Speeding things up, simplifying. It's good.
Yep. Yeah, like a simple thing like that where it doesn't have any effect on the gameplay.
No, none whatsoever.
It is just a simple little clarification. Like, there's no reason why these like that shouldn't have been. There's a lot of instances where like, all right, please just, you get the guy that has like all the books. And you're like, oh well, over here it does this, and according to this, and you're like, why is this so hard? All right, building an army. This has been talked about a freaking lot. Yeah,
the soup killer.
Mm-hmm.
I like this overall. In a few articles that I've been reading, this has been coming to mind a little bit. It is going to make certain. It is coming down harder on some armies like Chaos, because for instance, you have Chaos Demons. If you're trying to play a mono god, good luck now,
right?
Because you're going to take a huge CP tax for that,
right?
To get the stuff you need to get, because normally you like mix your Chaos Demons with some Space Marine faction, but now you're paying command points for that.
Right.
Whereas before it was encouraged.
Right.
I definitely think this is necessary for things like orcs who are like, sweet, we'll run 4 battalions.
Right.
In 2,000 points. Them and Imperial Guard, basically all the Horde armies were able to get a ridiculous amount of command points, where other armies could not as easily. They still could, but it was much harder and definitely put a much bigger limit on how they built their army. Yeah. Overall, this is good. Yep. It just unfortunately is a lot harder on armies that have smaller codexes.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely a complete flip, like 180, like the command point system. But I kind of like what you're saying, and going back to the whole modifier speech. I think it's good. I think it makes it more approachable. It makes the game more understandable. Of like, hey, we're both starting on the same playing field here when it comes to command points. You know, and you don't have like this endless fount of command points that because of this, that, or the other. We're generally going to be in the same ballpark, and I can understand why you might have a little bit more than I do, but not a million command points when I'm like sitting here with 5. Like, how did? But I just spent them all. You know, like.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. The detachments being limited to those point limits, I think is really cool. I think it's necessary for there actually to be play with like just like a combat patrol, right? I think it's a really good push for them trying to bring smaller games into kind of the mainstream. I mean, the idea of getting a 40K game in over lunch, it's pretty cool, you know? But like this, where you just kind of like structure it out a little bit. So we're like, okay, well, we're just going to do combat patrol because that's supposed to take what, like 30 minutes or whatever it said. And so you can only have one detachment, right? So now I'm not bringing super crazy little Death Star, but just like a smaller one. I'm bringing whatever I can in a freaking combat patrol, which is going to be pretty small. You know, you're going to see things that actually make sense for a combat patrol, I feel like.
Yeah, this is good.
I wonder kind of what you were mentioning, like orcs taking 4 battalions. So Strike Force, you're probably going to see the Strike Force game the most, or the size or whatever. So 3 detachments. For a lot of... Was that?
I said if that. I think you're going to see a lot more just 2 detachments.
Right, because of the command point penalties, potentially?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very good point. Something that's easy to forget about when you're list building, maybe. You're just looking at this. But yeah, see, but you still might... Yeah, you got to get my head around the fact that detachments cost CPs. Yeah. Well, anyways, what I was going to say is you could still see 3 detachment lists going around. You could probably fill out you could probably put a lot of freaking models, a lot of different units on with 3 detachments, 3 battalions or whatever. But yeah, that CP cost is going to be pretty hefty. So
yeah,
probably not going to be doing that.
No.
Yep. All right, stratagems. There's more core stratagems.
Yeah, that's cool. Good. Something I don't like is this command reroll change. I'm not opposed to reining in like what all you can do with it. I'm not totally opposed to that. What I'm opposed to is I'm used to using it for anything, and now I have to go through and be like, all right, what am I able to use this for again? This is something that's going to slow down the game, at least for me, for a while.
Right.
Because I'm not going to remember what I can't use it for anymore.
Right.
And I'm going to have to look every single time I try to like, oh, can I command point reroll for this roll? I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that was needed. Just because you're talking about 1 dice. You know.
I think that's changed as well. I don't think it's just a single die. I think it's you completely re-roll. So if you're trying to re-roll a charge, you roll both dice.
Okay, well then that makes more sense to me then. It's being limited, but okay. Yeah, no, you're right. It's going to take some learning, some thinking.
That's another thing I don't like about this is like I have to re-roll the whole charge. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Well, you might.
Probably not though, because let's say you're trying to make an above average distance charge, so like say just 8 inches. The probability of getting that has gone way down than if you could just re-roll a single die.
Right. For sure, but if it's like a charge that you really need to get off and you roll a 2 and a 1, you know,
Yeah, sure, you still roll with that, but
yeah, you know, and then again, it's maybe combined with, sure, it's certain instances, but now now the benefit of using that stratagem has gone down a little bit, so you're not going to be using it all the freaking time, so you're not going to be back and forth from the book all the freaking time trying to figure out when and where you can use it. I'm not opposed to there being a little more flavor to the command point reroll. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it works out. Hopefully it's not too much computing, you know, space in the brain while you're playing.
Yeah, so it is a complete reroll.
Okay.
It's not just a single die.
Yeah, that'll, not having the choice, that'll definitely make people, that definitely narrows down the scope into to when you would want to use that. I do like, all right, so having the core, having there being more core stratagems, I think that's cool.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if they just went ahead and put the core stratagems in the freaking codexes. That would be great. But especially you're gonna have more of them. But I like, again, going back to making the game more approachable. I think it's better to have more things that everyone can do, and then having the little things that add the flavor, versus everything that I'm going to do is going to be only available to me. And therefore, if you want to be good at beating me, and then not, if you want to be good in like tournament play for competitive play, then you got to know everything that's out there, you know. So you're not just completely blindsided by some sort of combo you've never seen before, and then you don't know how to handle it, and your game just goes to absolute crap because you've never seen it before, you know.
Right.
But anyways, Desperate Breakout, yeah, some risk and reward sort of things going on where you can get out from a pin position at a potential cost, right? Or you can disembark farther because you can trap people, right? If you circle them around and they can't get out within the appropriate distance, and you like lose the models, right? So you can get a little further, but
Right.
it's more risky. Yeah, no problems there.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever use that stratagem, but I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's pretty situational. I feel like it might be one of those that you just like put in the back burner. You don't even think about it, and then it happens, and then you just meet an opponent that's like good at making it happen. You know, like there's something. Oh, there's something here. I need to know something here. What is it?
Yeah.
Strategic reserves. This will be very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good change.
Yeah, the idea of a knight just waiting onto the battlefield in like turn 3 or something. Very scary. It'll cost a lot. Yes, it'll cost a lot. But think about it, man. That could change the game if you couldn't even focus. You couldn't even do anything to the knight because it's not even on the table, and you're fighting everything else, and your combat power is getting diminished. Your important things are getting picked off by snipers or something like that, and then the knight comes on. That could be worth the CP, depending on whatever army you have. If you have an army that there's some not all stratagems are made equal, you know. And you're like, yeah, well, you know what? I could just do without most of the stratagems. Whatever. Let's bring on a knight turn 3. You know. It'll just be interesting because it neuters that alpha strike, which needed to be done, but B, it'll add a lot of strategy, you know, to the game. I think it'll definitely be something you gotta like remember. You're like, oh, why is he doing that? I wonder how much it's gonna be seen, you know.
Right.
Actions, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
yeah, it's about the reaction I was like,
I mean, cool. Yeah. Terrain, huge. If they made no changes other than the changes they made to terrain, I'd probably be happy.
Yeah. Terrain was out of control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very silly. There's a lot of extremely silly things happening. Like, wow, okay. It's a really big balance, between making the game so, rules heavy on getting all these little intricacies out that you're never even going to get through the game very quickly because you're just trying to figure out how everything interacts with everything, all in the name of making it more realistic, or making it so simplistic that it's just, well, it doesn't look anything like it should, but it works smoothly,
Yeah.
So the breaking it down into 4 categories, I like that. There's something with in Team Yankee, for instance, they have a really big long list, and they do a great job of making it findable on one page. We don't have to search through the whole thing, for forever trying to find all this stuff. But there's just like a really long list of how everything interacts with everything.
Right.
Having just 4 simple categories, it's really cool. Hills, obstacles, area terrain, and buildings. So some of the silly stuff that we saw in 8th edition was just a random hill somehow giving cover or like a Connex or something just silly. Right? Like there's no way this thing would actually give you cover, and yet you're magically hiding behind the grass.
When your foot's touching it.
Right. Yeah. I'm not touching it. Oh, I am. Yeah. So hills basically do nothing for you. I think that's cool. I mean, other than blocking, true line of sight, which obviously that wouldn't have changed. I really, really like the addition of obstacles. And I think obstacles is one of those things it's always been awkward on a tabletop, but it's always something you want to bring because it makes the tabletop look super cool.
Yeah.
But there was never this defined aspect to it, but now there is, and I think that's really cool because defined to the point where you can actually see it in tournaments, right? Because now you can have these like little barriers and stuff going on, and it can make sense. Like, oh yeah, well, you charge through it or you shoot, it gives like the rules that they have for it. I think you're going to see it more, and you're going to see a lot more cooler tables, many more places, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, and area terrain, buildings, you got anything nice and big on those?
No, it's just checking out the new terrain traits.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, figuring out how to implement those into your strategy.
Yeah, I hope it's not so much that like it slows that game down a lot, but again,
initially I think they'll be pretty. They look like they're pretty like intuitive once you're familiar with them.
That's great. It's awesome. Yeah, terrain is huge, man. Any sort of tabletop war game, terrain should be huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, finding that balance, I think, is certainly an art of not making it too hefty of a price for thinking about it. But anytime you're trying to play a tactical tabletop war game and then things that just don't make freaking sense at all, you're probably going to lose some people, and you're going to be living in this like make-believe world, and no one wants to play in the make-believe world because they want things to make sense, like you said, intuitive. Oh, and then the bringing back a little bit some boons in the fight phase, the whole defensible terrain bit. I love that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that because it's like just have this whole idea of having your enemy in an entrenched position, and you have to mount, an attack a determined attack on this position to get them off of the hill or off of the the barrier, the barricade, whatever. Like that's cool. All of these things coming together with the MSU kind of thing going on. The how you're gonna see your characters roaming around with dudes on the tabletop. I think ultimately barricades being used, obstacles, you're gonna see a much cooler looking tabletop
right
throughout the game. You're not gonna see just silly things, and that's one of the biggest things I'm excited for. That for the game ultimately, to steal your word again, to be more intuitive. I think it'll be really, really fun.
Yeah.
Anything else on the rules?
Nope.
Yeah. So the other bit on this article, open play, match play, crusade play. Crusade sounds pretty cool, especially when you start thinking about the detachment rules and the strike force, onslaught, all that sort of thing. I think that could be cool. Bringing in some other styles of play other than the 2,000 point, let's just smash each other play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So